I've gone through burnout. I'd say like 3 times in my life now. I went through,
and I don't want to say your age, but like she's still youth.
Thanks, I'm still youth, guys.
She's still youth.
I'm still youth. I've gone through burnout 3 times in my life, and it's burnout of those ones I cannot get out of bed. Like I have spent everything, like my body is physically sick. It's that point of I cannot think. At a very gut level, I knew that I could do hard things, and I think there's nothing as powerful and as beautiful as knowing that there's nothing you cannot do, right? If you set yourself to it. And I knew that at a very visceral level, that there was not.
Let me tell you, I thought seasonal depression was just another thing where white people have come up with. But where?
Yes.
It's, for me, the shock was like, it's getting dark at 4 p.m.
Thank you.
And then I'm still expected to continue with life. It's time to sleep.
And it's like your brain is like, what's happening? You're feeling sleepy. Sijalala vizuri. And it's, because you don't know. And again, it affects us more because we are born in warmth and we are born in the sun.
One other important thing to say is, it's also important to figure out actually what's the problem, what's putting you there, or what's leading you there, or what's like the trigger. Because it's very easy, yes, to say, okay, let's do what works for us. But if you don't discover what the trigger, what the root of what's bringing all this, then it's still a template. It could work for you, yes, but it's still like a thing, and you won't be able to sustain it because the problem will come. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Take This With You. I'm so excited, and first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone who has taken time to watch, comment, share their feedback. I really appreciate it. I was telling someone how, like, for me, it's so amazing how, like, 100 people, if you put 100 people in a room, it's amazing. So thank you to everyone. And today we have another exciting episode with a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, but also like a really badass woman. So I'm very, very excited to have her. Welcome, Winnie.
Thank you so much. Hope. It feels very weird calling you by your first name.
Yeah. We've gotten to that place in our friendship where we don't call each other by first names.
No, if someone asked me Jane ID, I think I'd be like, who now?
I hope you know my full names.
Well,
we'll have a conversation.
Yes.
So Winnie, before we dive into everything, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay. Thank you so much, Hope. Thank you so much for having me here. I mean, when you told me about this podcast, it felt very natural for you to do this. Like, you're such a natural communicator. The people you pull into your life are so amazing with so many stories and backgrounds. I felt like this is just such an amazing alignment for you, and I'm so happy to be walking this journey with you finally, and to continue the conversation. So to tell the people a little bit about myself, because I think you know almost everything, if not everything.
The world doesn't know.
The world doesn't know. Okay, so my name is Winnie. I'm born and raised in Kenya. I pretty much spent a lot of my life here. I am a trained therapist, psychologist. I am registered as well here in Nairobi. But I've also spent a bit of my life in Germany, where I did my master's and I studied and I explored the language and I explored the country. Yeah. And so, but I'm back home for some time, and Hope and I have always, I think I like to say it's love at first sight.
Honestly,
love at first sight. We met at one of our job positions in life, and also part of my long journey. I think if we were to go into that would be the whole episode. But I've kind of worked many recruitments and government and tech, and now I'm getting into what I also feel like is alignment when it comes to opening my own practice. I'm an only child. I come from a single parent home, and my main parent is my mom. She's my best friend. And I'm very close to my family, very strong values. I am spiritual, and I believe that there's a connection to God, and He brings us here with a purpose and for something big, in alignment with everything that you're supposed to do. I think I'm a bit lost.
Like in life, or
no. I think it's my introduction. I think I've told you what I do, who I am. I find it interesting. A lot of people have been telling me this, and I think I want to own it. is therapy or psychology is not what I studied. It is who I am. Because I've been told I've been embodying these things even before I understood what they were. And before I'd be like, I don't know, guys. But I think the older I get and the more I lean into it, the more I feel like, okay, maybe this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So this conversation around the topic that you're going to introduce feels very much in alignment as to where I am and what I do and who I am as Winnie. Yeah. I don't know if I've answered your question.
I mean, to introduction. But I think what you said about like therapy is not what you studied. I can 110% vouch that.
Okay.
Winnie is this type of friends that like I always like something I think is so casual, even talking about like men and all that. I'm just like, yeah, it's banter going on dates. She's like, yeah, we're having conversations. We're talking about what our intentions are, what our plans are. I'm like, it's not always that serious. But that's the kind of person you are.
Yeah.
You really embody what you preach.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I was in awe. I didn't know where to go from there. Okay. All right. So you alluded to it a bit, but before we get into the conversation, I have a few icebreaker questions, this and that sort of thing.
All right.
And I will judge you based on your answers.
Okay.
Coffee or matcha?
Matcha. I'm sorry. I know. Give
Judging.
me the grass.
Morning person or a night person?
Oh, night person. Oh my God.
Okay.
The fact that I'm here this early, this tells you where you are in my heart.
It's a dedication. Like we were to do last week, and I appreciate you. Text back immediately or disappear for 3 days?
Oh, I am a disappearer.
Yeah,
I'm so
because
sorry.
if you were going to say text back, I was like, okay, so, okay. Would you rather have your therapist read your group chat or have your group chat read your therapy notes?
Ooh. I think my therapist. I think she'd have quite interesting observations. I trust her thoughts more
than yours.
Yeah, my friends will be like, yeah.
Nikubaya. Okay. A promotion or a 3-month sabbatical?
3 months sabbatical. This life?
I don't want money.
We must live it.
We must live it.
Yes.
Okay. Peace or passion?
Peace.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And the last one, what's your most toxic productivity trait?
When I get into something, I get into flow. I really, the morning, evening person, those things disappear. Like I'll just go ham and my body just becomes secondary to whatever I'm chasing, which is something that we're trying to unlearn. And I think it falls under the conversation we're having.
It does.
But when it comes to me chasing something I really, really want, I think I sacrifice a little bit too much. And I'm trying to unlearn that now.
Yeah. We're very similar. Mine is like, the last minute just does things. I'm a woman of the 11th hour. I will produce miracles in the 11th hour. But I used to be those people that submitted my assignments in uni at 11:58.
Oh my God, anxiety.
Just 2 minutes to keep it on the edge. But yeah, deadlines really do it for me. It's a very toxic trait, and I am working on it.
We love you still.
Thank you. All right, so as you've probably gotten a hint of, today's conversation is about something that I think I've been reflecting a lot, but it's something that we need to talk more because the lines can become a bit blurred. And it's, are we performing wellness or actually living well? So wellness culture it's just like ballooned. It's become insane. It's the run club. Like people are waking up at 6 a.m. to run. And it's not like 5 people. It's 400, hundreds of people. On Instagram, the affirmations are there. The journals. Like right now, if you want to start a business, start a wellness, you'll hit it. But at the same time, things like burnout are at an all-time high. I was reading a statistic somewhere that said like 76% of employees worldwide have experienced burnout. And it's especially prevalent in women. And young women. You know, you'd think maybe it's women who've 30 years career, but it's people like us in our 20s who are going through burnout. And also, it feels like everybody has something going on. Everybody needs to be in therapy. It's a lot.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think it's a time, it's a time of awakening and a time of so much awareness when it comes to therapy, when it comes to what what has been affecting us in our past. And I think because of social media, leave alone the internet was there and therapy has been there, but those were two different things. But the moment we had Instagram and TikToks, and now these things started becoming way of life in a way, then it kind of become culturalized, right? I was listening to a podcast about Esther Perel addressing this same thing about how therapy has now become part of culture. And I found that quite interesting because it's like, yeah, actually it is part of culture, because now words like narcissism is so easily, gaslighting is so easily used without it truly being understood. And yet these were words, I'd say 10 years ago, were only spoken about in therapy rooms, right? So I can see the uproar of it, but I think the bit of the missing is, and it's on one end it's good, right? I'm very happy that people are now being very open and saying, and I see people like, yeah, getting into my therapy session and going in for a run and stuff like that. But do you know whether it works for you is a question I usually now kind of beg the question. Is running for you? Because also running increases a level of cortisol in your body, and if it's not for you, as we both know, it is not for us.
No, me, I'm trying. I've signed up for Stanshot.
Okay, so we'll see.
We will see.
We will see. And I think the main thing I think I would now start bringing up is what works for you. Out of all the options that we are seeing out there, from the matcha girls to the walk girls to the hiking girls to the whatever you're getting into, I think it's truly understanding, does this really work for my nervous system? Or am I then, as you're saying, the burnout is you're doing your job, which is whatever amount of hours, it's, high pressure and all that stuff. And then you're forcing your body to do something that is completely unnatural, but in you, you're like, yeah, this is still wellness. And it's not, because it's very disconnected to who you are. And I think it's understanding that, who am I, so that it can connect to the right point of wellness. And I think that's the conversation now we need to be having, is kind of like customize wellness to who you are, and not just because this is what we are doing. And again, I love it, because when I look at 10 years ago, again, when I look at my parents and my aunts and uncles, they never ran. Like, surely, never.
Okay, they used to run to school, or so they say.
Or so they say, but not the way we are doing it, And a lot of the inner child things that are coming up, it's beautiful, right? And so I'm happy that we are moving as a society, as a Kenyan society. I'm very happy to see that we're picking up healthy habits. But I think now this is great. Our foundation is starting, but now what works for me and what doesn't work for me is, I think, the conversation we need to be having.
Yeah. I mean, on that note, we might as well close the conversation. No,
episode answered.
Episode questions answered. But I really like what you're saying about what works for me.
Yeah.
Because, so I've been in a season of, I took a break from work for the past few months.
Yes.
And one of the questions I've really been asking is, what does rest look like?
Yes.
And what does sustainable rest look like? Because it's easy to rest right now when I'm not working. But when I go back to work, I'm a very intense person. But how do I ensure I don't go back to a place of burnout?
Yeah.
And one of the things that at the beginning of the year, I said I'll be waking up at 5 a.m. Because there was all this buzz about 5 a.m. club, I don't know what. But I've really struggled.
Yeah.
And at some point I was like, okay, let's be real. Does waking up at 5 a.m., yes, there are benefits, but does it actually work for me?
Exactly.
Am I really a morning person, or does it take some time for me to wake up and then I'm at like my most optimum state?
Exactly.
And so really thinking about like what actually works for you.
Yes.
And to ensure we're not performative, but are we actually living well?
Absolutely, yeah. And I love that you said that. If there's one thing I think, it's weird, our friendships are very much coincided in the seasons that we go through. And sometimes, as all friendships as girls, sometimes we are having those seasons where we talk a lot, and then sometimes we'll have some time and then we'll come back into each other. But when you told me, I remember when you told me like, oh yeah, you took a break from work, and I was like, oh my gosh, I also took a break from work. It was very coincidental, and I was asking myself those same questions, what rest look like. And I was also going through this with my therapist and kind of understanding, why is it so hard for us to rest? Especially when you have this type A personality where you feel like you're constantly moving. It's also the guilt of, if you're not moving, then there's no worth to you. That's like one layer to it. And then the other part is, even in rest is not just sleeping. I think that's also the other thing that we confuse.
Preach it. Preach it for the people at the back.
Yeah, so I also had to kind of go into and really understand, and it took me in a whole like deep rabbit hole into what rest is. Rest is creativity. Rest is understanding your flow. And I love the way you're saying, you realize this 5 a.m. thing is not for you,
It's not
right?
mine.
And you now listen to your circadian rhythm. That is rest. The fact that you're listening to your body fast, where in normal life every day, I mean, we go against it a lot, which is absolutely fine. We need to do what needs to be done. But at the same time, giving yourself the time to really listen to what your body is saying, like, hey, this morning thing, no. If it means going to bed at 8, let's do it. If it means going for a walk, let's do it. But that is also a form of rest. It's creativity. It's novelty. Taking the adventure to go and just try something new, right? We were just talking about it before we entered, and I was like, I just decided I want to go get these henna tattoos. It's been a minute, and I went on Instagram.
And you are not in Coast.
And I wasn't in Coast. And I was like, I went on Instagram and I found people and I went and did it. That's a form of novelty, just trying something new out of your norm and without thinking too much into the repercussions into it. And I think that is also a form of rest and wellness that forms into it. I think it's just now the templates that we've been fed by the clean girl aesthetic and all these other, work girl aesthetics. They're falling into boxes and we are thinking that we are not meeting the box and therefore falling short, and that's entering into like a shame spiral of sorts. But listening, and I love what you said, just listening to your body and be like, I don't think this is it, and allowing yourself to change your mind without feeling guilty is also part of the process.
Yeah, my mother says it is only a madman who does not change their mind.
Ooh, okay, we like that.
Everyone needs to change their mind. But okay, so we're going a bit too fast.
Okay,
The syllabus is moving.
Okay.
And I just want an opportunity for people to get to know you,
All right.
Who's like the little Winnie. Tell us a bit about growing up, and maybe how your childhood or growing up kind of shaped some of the opinions you have today.
Yeah. Interesting. So I've been finding myself, I mean, I think we all do in a way, or maybe that's just me, I don't know. But I think about my little self a lot. And especially having come back home and taking the time to rest, it's really put me in an introspective space. Little Winnie was intense. You think I'm intense now? You should have met 7-year-old Winnie. There's this story my family likes to say where there's this like, you remember Sports Day? And we would be given these activities like sack racing and carrying the sand and everything. And the last activity was your parent carrying you and racing. Now, whoever had won, according to your color houses, you would be selected, and then your parents would have to carry you on their backs, and then they run. Then now whoever wins. So until this point, I was leading in the polls, and my mother was there. And this is 7-year-old Winnie. I was like, listen, we are not losing because of you.
Okay.
You have to bring your best foot forward. So this is who I am, right? I have memories at 12 doing smart goals. And these are things
12?
Yeah, at 12. I remember going to a teacher, I was like, hey, Mr. So-and-so, these are the goals I'm setting for myself. I need you to hold me accountable. These are unprompted. Please, for background, my mother is almost, she's like, oh, I know some. You just go do your best.
Just
child.
there
I love
setting
it.
goals.
Me, I'm just there setting.
How did you find out about smart goals?
I think there was a book I found. I was also a very avid reader, and I think I got into like this motivational. Back then, it was like how to study smart, right, and how to memorize, and because again, 844, right? It's just about memorizing, surely. But how to memorize and how to do this, and it got me into now goal setting, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fascinating. It gives me a system to my achievement, and it spoke to me, and it's just something that I held on, all my life. And so I was a very intense, introspective child. But also on the other side, I felt like it was a bit kind of like dual. I felt like I was very introspective and very soft on the inside, but then the wild, whatever they saw in me gave me this label. So I remember like even in class 6, I went to boarding school. My choice, guys. My choice.
You funny, what classes
People
are you
in the studio also laughing. It's my choice.
We're not judging.
And I remember going into this new class, never met these people. This is a new school, right? And the first week, the teacher puts me as the class prefect. And he's like, I just see leadership in you. I was like, what?
I mean, you were set on gold, so.
I mean, Right. But these are things that, grown-ups are seeing in me that I couldn't see in myself. And so I feel like it created two versions of myself, where there was this sensitive child, introspective child that was uniquely, authentically me. And then there were all these other things. Yes, the ambitious side was there, but there was all these other responsibilities and like me being the right thing and the proper thing that was kind of labeled. And I went with it because, also as children, when you are given something that emotes or gives you positive affirmation, you will grasp and you will take it into
Even
it.
as adults, honestly.
Exactly. So I took it. I took this label of responsible prefect, and you give her this, and she's disciplined, and all those things. And I think that's what I've been carrying so many years. And now is when I'm kind of like releasing the luggage and be like, thank you, but here's your bag back. Thanks. I want to go back to, the sensitive side. That's still all this, it has the duplicity of all of these things together. And two things can be right and wrong at the same time, I believe. And so that, I think that was Winnie. I mean, I sadly went through a lot of things that as young children, I mean, now I think people are talking about it very openly, but as a young child in that moment, it felt like a singular experience where I was a bit too young to be going through them. And I think that's also what also expedited my awareness, expedited my introspection. For example, you mentioned journaling. I started journaling when my parents were going through their divorce, I was 7. Please explain me how. Like, even then I didn't understand. Or maybe I was watching Jerry Maguire. What's this? There's this.
I don't know what you are watching.
This Nickelodeon things or this Disney things. And I'd see the cute diaries. I don't know. Maybe. But I started journaling then. And I've been journaling for 23 years now, I can say easily. And so these are things that I feel like happened somewhat innately or through inference that have built who I am. But now is a point where I look at it and I'm like, thank you. Because had it not for the hardwiring system that I had then, I wouldn't have been able to achieve the things that I have achieved or taken the risks, made the decisions. It was because at a very gut level, I knew that I could do hard things. And I think there's nothing as powerful and as beautiful as knowing that there's nothing you cannot do, right? If you set yourself to it. And I knew that at a very visceral level, that there was nothing. But then again, because of that intensity that I had been holding for years, I knew that I could also sacrifice my body to achieve these things. And sadly, this is something I did. I remember when I was in class 8 and studying for KCEP. And I studied so hard. I literally got sick and went home for 2 weeks. And in that 2 weeks, I'm negotiating. I'm like, listen, Mama, I'm giving you 1 week. Can I please go back to school?
It's you who needs the week, not your mom.
Thanks, And so I could now, when I look back, I see the moments that I trained myself to betray my body, right? My body was clearly telling me things, but I was like, my mind is stronger. And yes, it is beautiful. And I see a lot of it now. And it worries me a bit when I see content that is really pushing you to exhaustion. It's beautiful because it also gives you such confidence to know that you can achieve certain things. But I look back and I see that I was doing this at 14, 15. And I feel very sad for that version of Winnie, who had to think that she had to do these things in order to achieve. And sadly, because of that, I never felt that anything was enough. Even though, like, I am getting, like, an A. It's the version of A that I want. Now, that's the point I got to. Like, even the version of A was not enough. It had to be a specific A. Otherwise, we are breaking down and it is not enough and we need to work harder. And so it's been a journey to kind of unwork and let go of the bags that have been given. And I also took up some, right? It's just not what people gave me. It's a twofold thing.
Yeah.
To get to a point of being okay, not working from that system, and also recognizing when it comes up, because it's such a natural expression of who I am that it's so easy to go back. And that goes back into exactly what you said, the fear of going back. And that fear for me was so intense because I've gone through burnout, I'd say like 3 times in my life now. I went through...
And I don't want to say your age, but like she's still youth.
Thanks. I'm still youth, guys.
She's still youth.
I'm still youth. I've gone through burnout 3 times in my life, and it's burnout of those ones I cannot get out of bed. Like I have
My
spent
goodness.
everything, like my body is physically sick. It's that point of I cannot think. And so I know what burnout is. And this last time, it hit me a bit more deeper, and we talked about it. And I also got very scared. I remember telling my therapist, I'm like, I'm scared of going back to her. But at the same time,
Of going back to talk to her.
going back to no, going back to the version of myself that happens. I call her my engine, right? I'm scared of going back to the engine, but at the same time, you love the engine, right? Because it makes you achieve all these great things, and it gives you the compliments and the praise from people like, oh my gosh, Winnie, oh my gosh. But at the same time, she's hurt you. So it's a little bit of, that toxic
It's a
relationship
tension.
that you're
I get
trying
you.
to kind of work with, where you need to love you need to love and understand, but at the same time, tell her it's okay, it's time to rest.
Yeah. And I think and I'm curious to know how you transition, but I think there's a version of us that's in maybe like especially high school and Kenyan high schools and then university where it's like cramming its intensity. And you're rewarded for that intensity. The higher grades, the more like everyone wants. I used to go to a high school where they would publish us in the university, the top performing students.
Oh my God.
At the end of like I did Form 4 and A levels. Yeah. So they would publish your grades.
Yeah.
And they put all the grades, your A, B, 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 C, C, and they order you based on that. And so you're rewarded for that. Another thing I found is now you live that life and you move to like now the working life or post-university life where you're rewarded for that intensity. I've had managers or people tell me like, I like you because you deliver things quickly.
Yeah.
That delivering things quickly requires transniting, things like that. And so you're rewarded for that intensity. And you reach a point where it's like, in your mind clocks it as, if I don't do this, people will not see my value. So you attach your worth to that, to the accolades that you get, the affirmations that you get. So it's very hard to like detach that and say that I am worthy. And even if I'm not producing to the level that people expect, I am still worthy.
Absolutely. And I like that you say that, because it's not just the accolades, but it's also the system that also you don't know the other system. Like I used to admire, not to say that it's anything, but I would admire people who were so cool about their goals. They're like, I will come. And then sometimes they'd achieve it. And I'm like,
no effort.
How dare you, And who knows? I don't know what was happening internally for them. That's also another story. But I understand it's the outside, but it's also the system that you have, because you don't know, also for your body and your mind, it doesn't know any other day. So it's like, okay, so you want us, and then who are we? It's also that. It's who are we? Leave alone the accolades.
Yeah.
So if we are not using this system, which system are we? And I think there's also that nervous system and physiological experience, because also running on cortisol. I remember when I left the country and I realized how high my cortisol was. And I just realized how, even it's like the matatus and the driving and the intensity and the overtaking and the movement, even the way we walk in Nairobi, it's like, walking with a purpose. And then I went outside and I was like, we can just walk. And we will not be, of course, you plan yourself accordingly not to get late. That's still the performative, engine Winnie talking. But
also it's order. Let's all be on time.
It's true. It's also order and what's it called? The organization of social systems. Yeah, right? It's working. But it also taught me how much we move and how much you've been moving with that like urgency within your gut.
Intensity.
And that intensity of waking up and feeling that this is normal. And unlearning that, that I think was the first like, oh, okay, there's difference.
Yeah. What else did you discover in Germany that is different to like how you live your life and how you live well?
Yeah, I think one of the first things was Kenya, we're a very communistic society, which is beautiful. I mean, that's why we are back, right? But outside in the Western world, it's very individualistic. And I think sometimes you do need that space. To create that space where you can be an individual, where you can do things for you without without some people commenting this way or saying something that, it kind of nudges at you. I'd say, for example, the alcohol thing, right? When I went, my alcohol consumption radically reduced, and even it got to a point where I've stopped drinking. And I'd go to spaces, and you go and you just ask for a juice or a soda. No one will say anything. In Nairobi, you enter, you're like, here's the shot for just entering the door.
One for the road.
One for the road, And it's those small social things where you're like, okay, so I really, maybe this alcohol thing wasn't because maybe it's because, you're in this society and you just have to survive within the system that you're in. And it's something small like that. The second thing is the movement thing, which again, I'm very happy that we're doing in Nairobi, is the fact that after dinner, we would start taking walks because walking helps with digestion, right? But then again, sisi tunakula, we sit, you watch TV. Oh, let's get to that. That for me is a pet peeve. The watching of the TV and eating at the same time. My God.
7 p.m. news for
What
the parents.
Mean,
and then after that, there's the Kenyan show. And then there's the Latino show.
What do you mean? I have family as well in Germany, and I have a young cousin. And he's grown up in Germany. He doesn't know any different. And so we came visiting for Christmas. And we were having dinner, dinner has been served. And then there's music, like the way there's like a YouTube, whatever, DJ playing on the background. And he went and switched. He's like, what is happening, guys? We are having dinner. Can we not have a conversation?
Oh, wow.
And he's 10.
My goodness.
Right? And then now I was like, now it became part of me because it's like, why are we not talking? Why are we talking over the TV, over the phone that you're having, over the food that you're eating? Like doing one thing. Even in that, everything that we are doing is overstimulation and connecting as a family. So we as society become like, I'm always home at 7 p.m. You're home at 7 p.m. You're on your phone. You're listening to radio. You're listening to TV. You're munching your food. You're backing orders somewhere there. Are you really connecting with your family in as much as you're being home at 7? Those are questions we need to ask ourselves in society. And so those are some of the small things that now my nervous system, even now I'm like, when I'm home and I'm with my grandma and family and they'll do the thing with the TV and the phone and I'm like, guys, can we please pick one? Let's pick one. If you want to talk to me, let's reduce the volume. Let's have a conversation. If you want to have the TV entertainment, by all means, but also for me, my boundary, I'll walk out of the room, not out of disrespect. You have your moment. Me, I'll go somewhere and sit quiet and do what I'm doing because I've also learned what works for my body and what doesn't. And I think in that sense, the individualism exposure that I got kind of strengthened that. And I don't think Germany gave me this or it made me that. I think it always has been, as I was saying, the sensitive child within me. I think that's what has always been. But now leaving kind of gave me the permission to embody her strongly and to honor her more than, before. Sadly, it had to take that happening. But I also believe that you can also experience that here. It'll just need a bit more effort, I think, to kind of break through the two comments and the snidey to things that people will back at you when you're choosing to do different.
Yeah. I think there's usually there's this idea that some of this wellness or some of these things are for the West.
Yes.
And as you've said, yes, there are certain things that that environment allows it a bit more.
Yes.
Like, for example, the walk-in. I just find it like there's what's that place in Lavington where everyone goes to walk? Jaffrey's. Everyone and their grandmother is there.
Yes.
But like, yes, we need more of those spaces where people can walk. Because if you go and walk at the side of even like the We Run, and We Run is great.
Yeah.
But like a lot of it is you're walking on roads, you're competing with cars. So yes, there is an environment at play that certain environments have to be there.
Yes.
But I think we also need to remember that a lot of these things, our forefathers, our grandmothers used to do them. I remember one thing my grandmother used to do is they would eat before 7 p.m.
Yes.
And it's not that, okay, yes, we slept early and everything, but also it's to allow food to digest before you sleep. And so it's also thinking about like, let's not be very quick to label wellness as a Western thing. Let's look at what our people have done, what works in our environment.
Yes.
But also, you have to be intentional about it.
Yes.
You have to practice it. You have to say, we'll switch off the TV when it's time to eat. We'll have dinner as a family. We will, and when you were young kids, my mom used to make us eat at immediately we got from school because we'd snack and then not eat. So it's making rules like that for yourself that work for you, but also for the people around you, because you have to build your wellness culture for yourself.
Yeah, and also leg up on what you just said, right? Our grandmothers used to eat before 6. But if you remember, also after eating, they would have that cup of tea or that hot soup or whatever
Or hot water.
after and sit around the fire and they talk about their days. Isn't that
Exactly.
not the unwinding culture that, it's just
Being
now with a cute
present.
cup and, with a cute lemon
With the
ginger
music.
tea and the
Now these
music.
days, I see people put a
Right?
screen with fire
Thank
on
you.
the TV.
Isn't
some
that not
music.
what our grandmothers did?
Exactly.
Right? Isn't that not what they did? And again, I love what you're saying in the sense that it's not a Western thing. We've also been doing it. And also to the note of, if our grandmothers did it, it is in our bodies to know that it feels right to do it. And I think also going and trying these Western things, bodies, they are built different, and I can attest to that when it comes to vitamin D. That's, I went there and I started popping vitamin D pills. Like, what do you mean? And when seasonal depression hits you harder because, hey, we were not born in winter. Yes, guys, I know it's cold, it's June, but trust me, there's worse.
Let me tell you, I thought seasonal depression was just another thing the white people have come up with. But where?
Yes.
It's, for me, the shock was like, it's getting dark at 4 p.m.
Thank you.
And then I'm still expected to continue with life. It's time to sleep.
And it's like your brain is like, what's happening? You're feeling sleepy. Sijalala vizuri. And it's, because you don't know. And again, it affects us more because we are born in warmth and we are born in the sun. So it's different. And so they don't experience, they do. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen to the people who are born there. But for us as Black people
harder.
born in African countries who experience the sun since birth, it's harder. And why would we expect that some of these wellness practices that we are trying to force onto ourselves from TikToks and whatever are going to work for us? And what if we talk to our grandmothers and infer on, old knowledge that it will impact us even more and make us rest even more?
Yeah, for sure. You've talked about TikTok, and I'm wondering, so is the wellness industry, making us better or just giving us sophisticated ways to avoid ourselves?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's a little bit of both. I think Instagram and TikTok are giving you options. I think are also giving you the exposure of what's there, right? Because sometimes when you're in your bubble, right? When I think about my early 20s, I was talking about this with my partner and I was saying, I grew up in the Nyamachoma culture. I grew up where my folks, my aunts, my uncles, tunaenda somewhere outside Nairobi, tunakula nyama, we sit outside and we talk and we drink. I didn't know any different. It was only now through exposure, through certain maybe family members, through certain friends that I was like, oh, yeah, I can go and I can go and take a walk. Oh, I can be home at 8 and I'm a grown up and it's okay. And I think that what TikTok does for people who don't have that exposure, like what I had, what I didn't have then, is to see that you can buy yourself the comfy pajamas. You can buy yourself the cute cup that makes you feel good. You can do the makeup or whatever fills up your cup. Like it gives you that awareness that people who look like you, sound like you, have access to these things. I love that. And also the types. There's the meditation, there's the sound bath, there's the walks, all this stuff, right? There's the options, Before then, if you don't know, you don't know. And you're kind of left in your bubble and it takes you harder to figure it out. On the other side, the last part of what you've said, which is it's kind of supporting performative wellness.
Or sophisticated ways to avoid ourselves.
Yes, I love that. I think it's also true because again, you are looking at this. I also speak to myself. When I look at these people that I admire and I feel like, oh my gosh, I feel so seen by this person and I'm trying to copy what they are trying to, put out. I don't know why they're doing it. They could be doing it because they have a brand deal with whatever pajama manufacturer or tea manufacturer.
It's true.
Right? Or maybe it just works for them. Right? And so you can find yourself contorting to afford or to find or purchase and to do this thing that is supposed to be wellness that isn't necessarily for you. right? And I think in that sense, you're avoiding sitting with yourself and saying, does this really feel good to me? Ama, just the fact that you can now take a picture and look like so and so, or take again another TikTok and be like so and so, then it makes you feel good, right? And I think this is where the introspection comes into place. However, introspection looks for you. I do not say that journaling or therapy, or, I mean, yes, go for therapy, guys. But
Go for her therapy.
yes.
Actually, what is the name of your company?
My practice is called Eincare. So the spelling is a little bit different.
Yeah, I couldn't pronounce. That's why I asked you to say it.
So Einke is a German word. I like it because it kind of bids notes to the two parts of what has formed me so much. So Einkehr, it's EINKEHR.
We'll spell it there.
She'll put it here. And it means returning to your a journey to returning to yourself in German. That's what it means. And and also taking care of yourself during this journey, which I like because it meets two things. Life is always a journey, and you need to take care of yourself as you're going. So that's also one of the things that I'm passionate about. And it is through finding ways to introspect yourself, going back to your statement, that then you find what works for you. And I found this. I'll share it with you, and you can share it with the people listening. A very interesting test that you can do based on the questions that formulates a wellness, I want to say routine of sorts, or like a direction that works for you. There are people who like the cortisol of running and doing exercise in the morning. Good for you. There are people who need the yoga. There are people who that cup of tea in the morning, no sound, the smell of coffee. I feel nothing for coffee and the smell. But there are people who, when it hits their system, they're like, yes.
We've woken up.
We've woken up. It's a good day. No sounds or, some sunlight. So whatever works for you, it helps you at least begin that journey. Because once you start from that, I believe it opens up everything else, because also your decisions are aligned with who you are.
Yeah.
Your choices are aligned with who you are. And I think once we stop templating people into our lives, let it be inspiration, but let it not be a template that you're choosing to become.
Yeah. I think one other important thing to say is it's also important to figure out actually what's the problem, what's putting you there, or what's leading you there, or what's like the trigger.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy, yes, to say, okay, let's do what works for us. But if you don't discover what the trigger, what the root of what's bringing all this, then it's still a template. It could work for you, yes, but it's still like a thing, and you wouldn't be able to sustain it because the problem will come. So it's important that people go and I'm looking at the camera so that people really listen to this. It's important that sit with your problems, sit with what's causing you, try and figure out. One of the things I try and do is when I'm upset is I sit down and I ask, okay, so why am I really upset with this person? Is this like a thing I've been reacting to over time? I look through patterns, and also talking to people and asking them, have you noticed things? We need to be like very vulnerable with people and be like, tell me the truth. Okay, we keep fighting, but what do you feel is from your point of view? How do you feel I react? Me and my brother were close, but we're also we go at each other a lot. And I've been telling him, I feel like this is how you're arguing. But he was like, okay, Hope, also this is how you talk to me when you have a problem. And this is how I react. And so also trying to understand those triggers, those root problems, those like, I'm burnt out because maybe I've attached my worth to overperformance and this and that. Because once you figure out the root and the base, then you're able to heal well. It's how doctors, they really want to understand. They're not just giving you medicine. They want to understand what's actually the problem before we now start to heal.
What you've shared is so invaluable, by the way. There's the part of your brother that's marriage counseling 101.
I can give him that. No, I don't believe in marriage counseling until you've stayed for over a year.
Fair. It's true. So that you actually bring something to the table. But what you just shared in terms of patterns, and again, people think that patterns or relational patterns happen in romantic relationships. They don't. Even in sibling communication. So I like that. I like the fact that you sat with yourself to understand this communication dynamic that is happening is just continuing. And a lot of relationships, mother, daughter, father, whatever, parent, child, also mirrors the same thing. How you talk to each other, then one person reacts, and that's therefore it just becomes this thing. And sometimes, if some relationships irredeemable. I hear that, but those that can be worked on. And I love the honest conversation that you and your brother were having. It's like, when you talk to me like this, it's important, because once you understand where both of your triggers are, you get to change, and therefore change the pattern, and therefore better your relationship. But going into what you were saying in terms of understanding the challenge that is bringing on what is needed, that is very true, because one wellness routine or one wellness go-to will not work in every season. I remember with the last job I had, I was just getting so burnt out, and I've been in therapy for years, guys, on and off. And I know who I am. I know what works. I know what doesn't. I'd wake up in the morning. I'd incorporate my yoga, my silent time. I even create playlists that work for me, that, manage my nervous system. But I just kept getting bogged down. I just couldn't get a break. Like, I just kept getting tired. I just kept getting burnt out. And even trying therapy, and at this point it's like, oh, maybe I want to try someone else. Guys, if you find your person, I mean, not always, but if you find it, stick with them.
So you're gonna have to
Therapists
explain
are
to
also
another
like relationships.
therapist.
Please,
So
it's not,
this is my problems.
well, that, and also sometimes your person just gets you.
Yeah.
Right. So I had to go back to my main therapist. But it's also trying to understand, as you're saying, I was really trying to understand, why was I feeling burnt out? And yet, in terms of my wellness, I was doing everything that was right. And, she said something. She's like, I think you should go home. I was like, what? It's like, go home? I was just home, right? I usually try to come at least once a year. I was like, I just went home. I talk to my mom every day. I talk to my aunt every day. I go to my family every other weekend. Like, I'm home. She's like, no, you need to go back to the things that feel familiar. And truth to her word, the moment I landed, it's weird. Your body knows where it's supposed to be safe. The Swahili, the compliments, the hello sasas, just even the chaos, your body knows that this is supposed to be home. It has healed me. And so sometimes, in again, researching and trying to understand the root was also the environment that I had put myself in. Remember the Winnie who had been pushing and making herself uncomfortable? I was doing the same thing, right? Even in my late 20s.
Yeah.
And putting myself and saying, this must fit because I must win.
Yeah.
And yet, my inner self was like, no, imagine, we need to go and feel safe for now.
Exactly.
And sometimes your body doesn't know your timeline. It's not like, oh, by 30, I
gotta be doing this.
No. And that's why I think you're realizing a lot of the burnout is also these timelines that we're giving ourselves. By 30, we need to be here. By 35, we need to be here. And our bodies are like, imagine, no?
We just need to be safe.
Imagine, no?
Yeah. Because I like what, sorry to interrupt you, but what you said about, like, I love that she told you need to be home.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, a lot of people glorify moving abroad. There's this whole thing about, and yes, there's a lot that doesn't work at home.
Yes.
But sometimes, even in those places, like, I can attest, I've lived in different countries, and I can attest that the grass is not always greener, especially when it comes to your well-being, when it comes to what really matters. And sometimes you have to make that decision and be like that question I asked, promotion over sabbatical.
Yeah, sabbatical, yeah.
Sometimes the best thing for you is to pause, to take a break, and to rest. Yeah.
But tell that to the Taipei girlies that we are.
The money is good.
The money, the feeling, the achievement, the promotion route, it feels amazing.
I think when I told, like, my friends and family that I was resigning, they're like, you hope you're not going to be able to relax or rest.
And you do carry stress well. I will say that as a friend. Like, I am the one who has to be like, are you okay? But in general, like, you never seem frazzled. You never be like, oh my gosh, there's so much happening. Like, I've never seen you in that, like, falling apart, stressful, even though, like, for a second. Like, you'll just be like, it's just, I'm just dealing with a lot.
Which is a good and, like, a bad thing.
Yeah.
What I'm learning is I also need to be more open with how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Because I really do carry a lot and I don't share. My thing is, like, if you're not going to help me, so what are we doing? We're just talking. So learning to share, because I found the more you talk about it, the more healing also comes with a lot of yapping and talking.
Yeah.
Now, we could go on and on and on and on
We
because
can.
this is a great conversation and you're a
Yes.
great guest.
Thank you.
And I just want to now finish and okay, so we've talked a lot about, hey, the English is disappearing.
Yeah.
We've talked about a lot of things.
Yes.
About like living well, about what we are templating, what is not good. But as we finish, and especially to, that woman who's really trying to achieve a lot, because there's also a lot of pressure on women to achieve a lot right now. What is the most unglamorous or like the most radical, raw act of actual wellness that someone can do for themselves? Or maybe what are questions they need to ask that to ensure that they're living a good life?
Yeah. I think the one I'll lead with is the questions, right? Because I don't want to give the blanket recommendation, and then people are, because also sometimes sitting with yourself. I remember when we were talking a while back and I told you I started doing 30, 45-minute meditations, and you're like, how do you sit with yourself? And you're so perplexed. And like, don't you not have thoughts? But not everyone can sit in silence for that long. But also, I think the best thing is to kind of go back to the things that make you like make you feel fulfilled. And this could also be hanging out with people, right? I think also we are talking because both you and I are introverts. And I think just very quickly, my definition of introvert is introversion doesn't mean that you're shy, that you cannot. I mean, look at us, right?
Okay, me, I'm shy. I don't know about her. I don't know what this introvert she's saying. But okay.
And I think it's more where we draw in our energies. Once we are tired, our modus operandi is sit in a corner just by yourself. And there are people now who are extroverts who they need, if you put them in a corner and isolate them, you finish them. They are completely done. And so it's kind of recognizing that what energizes you and what doesn't energize you. 1. 2 is the things that bring you the most joy, right? And things that make you happy. Could be novelty, could be adventure, could be silence, could be people. But be true to yourself in that, and also do it in a healthy way, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That was a lot. Thank you. Thank you. Part 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe start a whole wellness day. But thank you so much, my buddy, for taking your time to share all this wonderful insights. We'll link everything about her business, and you can follow her and learn more. And she's starting with like free consultations before she begins the sessions. But honestly, if we all need therapy. So this is a therapist. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Take This With You. And let us know in the comments below, what are you taking for this conversation? What does wellness look like for you? Thank you.